What's up, guys? Salty Papa. Um, I want to make a video, have a talk about all this stuff that's kind of been floating around the YTPC over the last maybe week or two, um, in reference to the Pipe Cottage, Dr. Alan Harrelson, and his, I guess, opinions on Cornell and Deals the Beast, and just overall his stance on it. I'm going to start off by saying I don't really have a dog in the fight. However, there are some things that maybe just rub me the wrong way. He's a recent convert to Catholicism, Catholic Church. I don't know what religion he came from. He's very Southern, so very possibly Southern Baptist, or maybe Protestant or something like that. Although I think Protestant is kind of like a form of Catholicism. I think all religions are almost like a form of Catholicism. But anyhow, the point that I'm trying to get to is he's converted over to being a Catholic. I'm assuming Roman Catholic, which I have been my entire life. I am Italian. I'm a Sicilian. I grew up in northern New Jersey with a very large family and a very, very large connection to the Catholic Church. Very specifically, St. Mary's Church in Nutley, New Jersey. My entire family goes there, from my grandparents when they were still alive, my great aunts, into their 90s, they all went there. And anyhow, Dr. Harrelson has not been shy about sharing his opinions, which rightfully so. I mean, this is America. We're all entitled to our opinion. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, which also makes me a firm believer in the First Amendment. And I am a veteran, so I do believe that I fought for everyone in this country to have their own opinions and to be able to have their own opinions. And that being said, I see some flaws with Dr. Harrelson's opinions because of just more or less the approach. The approach seems to be very, I'm going to say bigoted, but that's probably not the right terminology. Just to put it bluntly, it seems like it's coming from a very uppity Southern person who is incredibly proud about being Southern. I'd also like to caveat that with, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just the way that it kind of comes off, probably very similarly to how I just came off with that statement. But the issue with it is, converting over to Catholic religion, he doesn't really seem to know how to be a Catholic, what the religion is about. I did make some notes just because I have a tendency sometimes to fly all over the place and maybe lose a train of thought or two. But there are things like salvation lying within. And this also kind of fits into the whole lack of community within the YouTube pipe community. Quite frankly, if you don't feel the community, then maybe you should contribute a little bit more. And I would suggest maybe a positive manner in that contribution, because if you put out and are spewing constant negativity, that's all you're going to get. And if it's being done for clickbait or views or, stirring the pot a little bit, well, that's just internet BS, bullshit, just to be blunt about it, And President Obama once said, and also this is, also in relation to Dr. Harrelson's political views. I am also very much a a Republican. Well, I'm a conservative, not always Republican, but I am conservative. I do vote Republican most of the time. I am a huge Trump supporter. But President Obama said, if you throw enough dirt into the town hall, the masses won't know what to believe. And at that point, you can tell them anything, and they'll be striving for something to latch onto. And that's almost the feeling that I get with what has gone on with his statements towards the Beast and Laudizi Enterprises. And, you know, the other thing, too, that is also, if you feel that strongly about it and you don't want to support that company or that group, just don't buy their products. You know, it's no different than, you know, purchasing Advil versus Tylenol or Ford versus Chevy. You know, if you don't want to buy a girl truck, don't buy a Chevy. That's how it goes. You know, you're free to spend your money wherever you like, but stirring the pot in the interim is filling the town hall or the town center, the town square, with that dirt that causes a lot of ruckus, confusion, and it does nobody any good. And that kind of leads back to, if you're not feeling that community, maybe contribute something a little bit more to it that has some value. As a Catholic, if you have been to Mass before, there comes a point in the Mass where the priest, the Monsignor, whoever, Father, you know, my Monsignor Steve, would say, you know, peace be with you. You know, everybody in the church turns to each other, you know, peace be with you. And when you give peace and thanks to each other, that is for the development of community. The people that are in that church are your community. Those are the patrons of that church. And sometimes after church, you know, you would have, well, we went to communion, or CCD, we called it, you know, it's like Sunday school, basically, immediately after church, or sometimes immediately before, just depending on what grade you were in. But also after church, a lot of people would bring food, and there would be a gathering, you know, in the basement of the church, and, you know, who brought whatever, you know, and everybody just kind of has like a little social time. You know, that's also building that community. And again, that's contributing that value to that church. Just like here with the YTPC, if you're not feeling that community, it's because you're not contributing any sort of value. You know, you're just stirring the pot and adding dirt into town hall. I think I'd also kind of like to caveat this whole thing with, I am a subscriber to the Pipe Cottage. I have unsubscribed and then resubscribed maybe once or twice. I do enjoy his videos. Obviously not all of them, but I do enjoy his videos. You know, a lot of people make fun of the accent. People are from different parts of the world, man. You know, if that's his accent, that's his accent. If that's how somebody talks, you know, you kind of got to accept that. You know, I have a very thick New Jersey accent. Sometimes I sound like I'm from Brooklyn, New York, but I'm pretty good at toning it down because I don't live there. I've lived in Pennsylvania for, I don't know, 15, 16 years now. You know, you kind of have a tendency to hide some of that stuff because there are people that are here that are very prejudiced towards that. And as soon as they hear it, you know, they know you're an outsider. You know, not to mention my last name is not exactly Pennsylvania Dutch. But community is all what you put into it. You know, if you, it's kind of like a marriage. You know, if you put 10% into it, you're gonna get 5% out of it. You know, you got to put 200% in just to be able to reap that 100% back. You know, that's just the way it works. I mean, everything in life is going to be a give and a take. And, you know, he's a very well-educated man, but I will also say that as a youngster, he was homeschooled. And I am all for that. I don't believe that there's anything against that. However, there is some social aspects that are not going to develop quite as good or maybe quite as rapidly as a child that's in a public school with 35 kids in a classroom. like I was. I was in a classroom. Actually, my classroom was 60 kids, and we just used a partition to divide the classroom, and there was teachers on each end. And then sometimes the partition would open and both teachers would be teaching 60 people. Um, and again, like salvation does lie within. As a Catholic, you have to fix yourself before you can go anywhere else. You have to work on again, salvation lies within. You have to work on what's in here before you can go out and do any sort of good for your community. You know, Jesus only helps those who help themselves, right? So, you got to kind of flow with that. If you're going to be a Catholic and you're going to state that you're a Catholic, well, you can't just talk about being Catholic. You have to be Catholic. You are acting as a shadow of God at all times. There are 10 commandments. You have to follow them. There is a Bible. You should be reading that. There's a lot of, I even wrote down some proverbs, about being humble. James chapter 4, verse 10, humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up. Proverbs 22, verse 4, humility is the fear of the Lord. Its wages are riches, honor, and life. And there are others as well, but, without trying to get too super religious about it, when you read the Bible as a humble man, as a humble Catholic, as a humble servant of God, you will understand the Bible a lot better. You will understand the meanings of the Bible a lot better, and you will actually be able to put those into daily life. And it's not going to be a verbatim thing, but it molds you as a person. It molds you to be a certain way and accepting of your fellow man and developing your community. Because if you can't develop your community, you're not going to have one, and that quite possibly could be the reason why you're not feeling it. By the way, a little Champipple in the Stanwell 12 today, or at least tonight. I was smoking some out of the Handmade 61 earlier. I guess I'm going to step down off my high horse, because I guess the fact of the matter is that I'm not perfect. I'd never claimed to be. No one is perfect. Only Jesus was perfect. God is perfect. And until we humble ourselves and until we seek that salvation from within, you will never be a devout Catholic. You will never be a proper man in the eyes of God. Now, that could all be forgiven. That can all be rectified. The Catholic religion once a week will give you the opportunity to correct all your sins and start all over again. However, man does not. And when you do man wrong, not all men forgive. Jesus was a man. And to some, he was a perfect man. He definitely had some flaws, but he gave up his physical body for all of us. And no matter what religion you are supporting or believing or practicing, there is one God. There is only one God. And that is Jesus. And until we start living in his light and through his eyes, you will never be a true Catholic, because it takes a lot of work to fly straight. This is somewhat, I guess, in reference to Midway Piper's video. He made a video a couple of days back, maybe a week or so ago. I think it was called "Can't We All Get Along?" or, something those general lines. But the way he spoke in that video, I thought was excellent. Very well spoken, very well thought out. Not demeaning in any way, which I probably was. Unfortunately, I do have that tendency to be very direct and without any filter. something that I wrote down here, and I don't know if this is from the Bible or not, um, but it's something that my grandmother used to say quite a bit, and it goes, and this is not an exact of what she said, but it's similar to what she used to say. But salvation is a gift from God, and people are encouraged to make a conscious choice to accept Jesus and follow his teachings. And I think really what that means is anybody can claim to be Catholic, anybody can claim to be religious, but until you accept him as the Lord, accept him as Jesus, and understand and follow his teachings and live your life in that fashion, you're just pretending to be Catholic. And I didn't really intend for this to be a religious banter, because I'll be the first person to tell you that I am not a perfect Catholic. I don't even go to church most of the time. But I absolutely do believe in Jesus Christ. He has saved my life, and I mean physically saved my life, and we'll have that story sometime in the near future. But I don't want anyone to abandon Dr. Alan Harrelson or the Pipe Cottage over one mistake. Everybody's entitled to a mistake. It is up to us as Catholics, as community, as people in the eyes of God, whether you believe in God or not, do it for your community. Do it to just be a decent person. You have to forgive. You have to forget, because that anger, that bitterness, that resentment, whatever it may be, it's just one man's opinion. And if it changes you, well, then the devil just touched you. And I walk with God. The devil can't touch me. I will not judge another man, especially over his beliefs. If he feels that strongly about those beliefs, those are his beliefs. He's entitled to that. My beliefs are different. I don't take it that seriously. I view the beast as nothing more than just a marketing ploy, regardless of how they actually put it out there. It's in poor taste, but it's good marketing. So I guess all that being said, always remember your Second Amendment. It does protect all of your other rights. It does allow you to remain a free citizen. Clock 19 today. Just in case any bears come up to the back porch. Take a little reprieve from all this stuff, guys. Get rid of that animosity. Let's maybe show Alan Harrelson that there is a community here and we do support him. I would want his support. And listen, he's got a lot of views, whether he pays for them or not, I don't care. He's got a lot of supporters. He's got a lot of subscribers. I am a peon in the YouTube communities, no matter what the community is. I've been smoking a pipe since January 10th. It's like April 13th right now. So, call it 3 months. But at the same time, I am going to continue to support Dr. Alan Harrelson. I don't know why I can't say his name for some reason. Because I will not condemn a man based on his beliefs. If he believes it that strongly, then we should all be supporting his beliefs, showing him what the community actually is and what we're here and what we're about. Because otherwise, he's 100% right. If we fall into any of the trap that, believing some of the things that he says, or what he has said rather, then he is 100% right. So if everybody that has been kind of butthurt about what has been said and what has been done, salvation lies within. Have a blessed night, everybody.